Nowadays, you have Metacritic and all kinds of different sites that, publish reviews on certain video games. Could be racing games, action games, whatever, But back in the day, let's say early 2000s, you didn't really have access to the internet like you have nowadays. The first time I got access to the internet was in 2011, man. So the entire time, no internet whatsoever. During those times, while a lot of people didn't have, internet, the only way you could really find out stuff about certain games was through magazines. There's a site called Retro Mags where you can just check out magazines from the past if you want to. So I figured why not check it out for certain video games from the past. So I don't have every single racing game in here. I have picked some decent ones some people will be familiar with, some just meme ones in there as well. Basically magazines like this one, for example. And I have cherry picked a lot of different racing games, so there's a little bit of everything for so many people. And I figured why not just look at it on Steam and see if these reviews were actually based or they were completely full of garbage. Yeah, we can start off with Burnout 3. Just see how they put these things together back in the day. I do already like how it looks. Just seeing in-game pictures. I know it's just a magazine, but it does look a little bit stylish. So, Burnout 3 Takedown. Tune in, turn on, Burnout. Demian, I don't know if I said that right. Demian, Brian, and Sean. 3 different people reviewing this game. Crunched up cars glide through the air in super slow-mo, accompanied by a dull roar and the tinkling of shattered glass. It's like car accident porn. We're off to a good start, man. I didn't know this was actually a category as well, man. Or how David Cronenberg's movie Crash might have been if it hadn't sucked so bad. My man Damien, but holy shit. Shots fired instantly, but so Burnout 3 is basically car accident porn. And then miraculously, my car is hurtling down the road again and time is suddenly going 3 times faster than normal. Yeah, it's kind of like that with boosts and all that. Weave around head-on traffic, punch the boost to really get nuts, slide through a series of super fast bends, and then broadside a Winnebago? I don't know if I said that right, honestly. Winnebago? Triggering a 5-car pileup. Is he talking about the crash mode? Oh, it's the funny Breaking Bad RV. This reviewer had too much fun with this game, clearly. True that, Dylan. Burnout 3 Takedowns Racing is amazingly frenetic, and its frequent crashes cataclysmic. They aren't shying away from fancy words, though, man. Honestly, yeah, Burnout 3 did have pretty good racing, man. It's still my favorites. Burnout 3 and Revenge are my favorite Burnout games. Just so amazing, how everything's so quick-paced, cars are super fast, boost charges up rather quickly, man. It always gives you a fun time when you're playing. There is no gear ratio tweaking, no credits to hoard, no neon to buy, no sprawling city to free roam around. Just pure arcade racing with simple controls. That's kind of what I like nowadays. Maybe some people are gonna be compared to nowadays with the big-ass maps we have, it's just, I kind of prefer how it was in Burnout 3, having specific stages, but they all look pretty nice. Nowadays, you have such open worlds. It's one area is super focused on, let's say, the city, and then 90% of the other areas are just, lots of trees sprinkled around, making it just kind of dull to drive around. Nobody really cared about the map in, let's say, Payback, maybe even Unbound. Some did care about Heat's map. It wasn't that bad, but it's they focus on a few areas and then everything else is just the same, sprinkled with a lot of trees. But having specific stages and just styling them out, kind of prefer that more nowadays. So hold the gas, tap the brake to slide, and don't forget the boost button. Yeah, just simple arcade handling in the game, man. That's so good. You never miss all the other stuff. Okay, sometimes I wish for a little more depth, but I'm a sim racing freak. If you're interested in sim racing stuff, man, Burnout is not for you. Imagine actually having sim racing elements in a Burnout game. That would be so strange, man. If you do too much burning out, you need to pit for tires. Exactly, man. Too much burning out, change from slicks to medium. mediums, etc. Sim racing with full force feedback. Dude, full force feedback in a Burnout game. Your hands are dead. Quite literally, they are dead. Normal people will be too busy having a blast to notice. That is true. Rubber band AI, frequent loading, PS2 especially, and no on-screen map, which would be especially helpful in some of the online battle modes. Online battle modes? I actually didn't know about that. So we had, I guess, Road Rage Online, Team Crush, Road Rage Split Screen. So that is Demian's review of it. Pretty alright, not gonna lie. I like how he mentioned it's literally car accident porn. How about Sean? What does Sean have for us, man? Sean, forget about tuning and tweaking in Takedown. The tenacity to ram your rivals and a sixth sense for finding a safe route through the snarled mass of sparking steel and smoking rubber are all that matters now that the contact motorsport is a mind-blowing as... Oh god, this sentence, man. Is as mind-blowing as the second Matrix movie's freeway free-for-all. I'm legit out of breath reading that, man. Feels too fucking formal for me, man. That feels like a sentence ChatGPT would summon up, man. That doesn't sound like a normal human sentence to me. This is by far the best Burnout yet, and simulators aside, it's the rawest, most rewarding racer you buck can buy. While the Pimple Pop Rock soundtrack subs shoddy tunes on you instead of letting you handpick songs from your hard drive, Xbox, the courses are sensational, the speed is staggering, and the smashes are spectacular. Shoddy tunes. Shoddy tunes, basically the game had a bad soundtrack? How can you say that the game had bad soundtrack, man? Like, man, not a fan of pop punk. I like how we call it Pimple Pop. Poorly constructed. I don't know. I wouldn't really say that about Burnout. Like, I don't know. A lot of the songs really energized you while you were just ramming your rivals, going super fast everywhere. I mean, if we're talking about Burnout, game is only punk rock. So if you don't like punk rock, you will hate it. Yeah, kind of like that. I personally liked it though. It really energized me a lot more when I played the game. So I think it was all right. I don't know if it deserves to be called shoddy, but hey, soundtracks are just, you know, different for everyone. Some like it, some don't like it. So what else do we have? Rubber Neck, it's all right. Bunched up and barreling through busy intersections at breakneck speed, you were almost part of the roadside attraction. To be honest, I kind of like Damien's review more because it just sounded more human-like. Sean was like, felt like I was reading a post from a Reddit moderator. He did have some, I guess, alright points. Can't really agree with the shoddy tunes. What about Brian, though? Takedown is hell on wheels, and I just can't stop sinning. Burnout 3 blows the door off its predecessors with blisteringly fast online play, massive single-player mode with lousy with unlockables, and all the right gameplay tweaks. Do you think any of these actually play the game? They're just describing the game on a surface level. I would say they maybe played it for an hour or two. I don't know. Maybe a little bit. I wouldn't say they completely ignored it or anything like that. With boost available at any time, assuming you've still got some juice, you've never that far out of first, and strategically steering your car in slow-mo during a crash-tacular fender bender. The better to sideswipe your competitors is pure genius. Plus, new effects like the blinding glare of the sun and smoke-filled intersections add to the tension of pushing 175 miles in your manly man's muscle car. Manly man's muscle car. What is this, man? Weaving in and out of traffic like a professional stunt racer. Or an idiot! I like this guy already as well. Either you're very good or you're just an idiot. New effects like this blinding glare of the sun. Is that really something, something to note? What's up? Have noteworthy about it, I guess. If you really have a need for speed, don't bother waiting for EA's Underground sequel, Get Burned Out here. Skip out on Underground, just play Burnout instead. I think out of all these three people, I probably like Damien the most. As for these modes, online or off, Burnout 3 packs multiplayer pileups aplenty. While straightforward races to the finish are twice as fun with 5 friends, only 5. That's still quite a bit though, for back then. Xbox cleaner voice chat gives its version a slight head on PS2. You even had voice chat on Xbox, apparently. I don't know why, I imagine like a Call of Duty lobby, but instead in Call of Duty you have it in Burnout. The more interesting modes reward foul play. Just don't bother strapping in. You're going through the windshield, seats, and all. So what else do we have? Road Rage Online. Objective, a hunted team races for the finish line as hunters attempt to ram off the road for a rewarding Fury finale. Why do I feel like this exists sort of in Paradise City? Our multi-point inspection says the reason to take the race online. Marked Man? Yeah, it kind of feels like Marked Man from Paradise. Team Crush. Objective is to cooperate to cause collateral damage in congested intersections. Our multi-point inspection says short and sweet, but you still spend more time watching them behind the wheel. And then split screen mode here as well. Overall, good. The best arcade racers since G's. I mean, I'm pretty sure there have been plenty of decent arcade racers back before Burnout 3. This was, I believe, 2005, right? Bad, our eyes hurt because of the not blinking. Then blink! You know, you can just pause the game and blink a little bit and continue onwards. Is that really worth a critique? Do you guys think there was any good arcade racers before this game? It was Outrun 2 before this? Midnight Club 2, Ridge Racer. Yeah, there's been quite a bit of good arcade racers, man. Cruisin', Daytona. Yeah, there's been quite a bit of them, man. To say since G's, man, like you could have named something here. But oh well. Damien gives it a 9, Sean 9.5, and Brian 9. Overall, I think it deserves a 9, though. I don't know about 9.5. I think realistically, it's a really, really good game. But I don't know if it deserves to be, you know, truly at the top, you know? Like, it has a lot of nice features, you know? Fast-paced gameplay, crash mode. I guess they didn't, that's all, they judged the soundtrack as well, so that might have gotten a lower score. Where would you guys rate Burnout 3? If you would be able to pick a number, man. It's hard to mention, like, what's not the best about it. It's just, like, a really good game. I don't know if it's the best racing game of all time type thing. Like, I think it's good enough for a 9. Overall, still a fantastic game to play, and if you haven't tried it out, definitely you should try with the PS2 emulator and see the wackiness this game had to offer. Now we have Burnout Revenge as well. It's the same people here. Actually, no, Damien's review was so good, he was put for Burnout Revenge as well. The other two, they got replaced. They got replaced. So, insurance adjusters will cry. So we have Damien, Shu, and G4. They got a literal shoe to write the review. What a disappointment! Burnout 3's announcer, Striker, and his 100 cringes per minute commentary have been axed. I miss Striker though, man. He wasn't that bad. And now a grouch like me has almost nothing to complain about, man. You could complain about not blinking again. The Strikerless Burnout Revenge is the kind of incredibly fast, incredibly fun arcade racer that even driving game haters can't help but love. That is kind of true though, man. If you have like a lot of anger issues, or just overall you're pissed and want to get your rage out, Burnout Revenge does have some game modes that can relieve your stress, kind of. Like there's literally a game mode where you just cruise down a highway and just smashes as many cars as you can, I think. This is a drywall punching game. Exactly, but it is great, but is also not very different from Burnout 3, which came out just 1 year ago. I mean, if it's just separated by a year, you can't really fully change the formula with Burnout. It's just, you can change a few things, few game modes, but not not like majority of the game itself. It did offer a few different game modes. What game modes did it actually introduce? Like, there was a certain mode where time would go down, but it would go up if you destroyed a lot of cars, I think, or something like that. Just this game mode overall, man. I think if you accumulated enough points on a single lap, you would get more time, man. It is true, it didn't have a lot of different game modes, but it was still, you know, I think it was just good enough as it was. Like, you didn't really have to change too much about it to make it a whole different game. The biggest change is traffic checking. Head-on collisions still result in a slow-mo smash that borders on car accident porn. This guy just can't leave porn alone. What is this guy's obsession with car accident porn? I don't get it. His fetish is car porn. Imagine you're a 5-year-old or whatever. You get a magazine like this and find all these words. But smack same way traffic and cars skitter and slide into chain reaction crashes. The key tactic that's good for earning boosts as well as taking down rivals. And even though it makes the game considerably easier, it's also undeniably fun. You know something else that's fun? Explosions. Or probably car accident porn. Formerly crash mode only, crash breakers are available in the later race events too. So if you wreck, you can trigger an explosion and hopefully take out nearby rivals. Yeah, that was actually pretty alright, but I don't think many people really use that feature. It's just most would just try and reset as quick as possible. So I don't know. It does sound alright, but I think it was just skipped over by most people. Like all of Revenge's tweaks, it's a minor one, but Burnout wasn't anywhere near broke, so we're not too surprised that the fixes amount to a buff and polish. Yeah, I think that could be a good way to summarize them, man. Like a buffed up version of Burnout 3 and a polished version. That's what I would say about Burnout Revenge. What about my man Shu? Crumbling steel, shattering glass, sparks from metal grinding on asphalt. These aren't fingernails on chalkboard moments, but rather the twisted metal beauty of Burnout. And then you have the sense of speed, the sweat, eye-searing sense of speed that only Burnout can deliver. Feels like this can be narrated by one of those movie voice guys. No other driving game can redline your adrenaline to such dangerous levels, man. You do feel a bit of a rush while playing Burnout games. That would happen to me a few times at least. The last Burnout is a hell of a tough act to follow. However, and as such, Revenge may disappoint some fans. Everything feels and looks really familiar, especially in online modes, which are mostly the same as before. But Revenge still ekes and awesome. Ekes and awesome. At least I'm learning new English words today. That's pretty good. Revenge still ekes an awesome out of me for its new track designs with branching paths and high-flying ramps that only add to the excitement and intensity that's already there. Yeah! Okay, now we know Shu's from Texas. Yeah, I do agree with most of the points. Online, I just don't know how it was because I never played online mode in this game. But most of the stuff, yeah, I do kind of agree with him. Sue is celebrating 4th of July. Yeah, actually, as I'm recording this right now, it is 4th of July. What about G4 though? Burnout Revenge is hard to rate. On almost every level, it's superior to Burnout 3, yet it lacks the impact of that game, which had so many pieces come together to create arguably the best arcade racing experience ever. Lacks the impact of that game. Does it lack an impact? I don't know. It does still feel, you know, similar. I don't know if it really lacked anything in that regard, but maybe I'm wrong. I guess traffic check takes away the tension of ramming into the rear of traffic. Yeah, that could be also mentioned. I think they also made it a little bit easier in that regard. Like, you wouldn't crash so simply now. Like, it would take actually a few more hits before you would have the crash camera. I think they mean Burnout 3 has bigger impact because it felt unique. Revenge is more like an evolution. Yeah, true that. If you go from Burnout 2 to Burnout 3, it definitely was a bigger leap, a whole lot of new stuff. And then when you go from Burnout 3 to Revenge, not a whole lot of new stuff was added. But what would you realistically add to the game to make it even better than it was already? It's just like, you already got it so good, it's just, what else could you add to make it even better? And I think they did succeed in that regard with a few game modes, but ultimately, yeah, it was very similar. Revenge's beauty is bounteous. The additions of track opening shortcuts, an intuitive rating system, and the ability to hit the same way traffic are significant and integrated flawlessly. I have a list of tiny complaints. I'd still like to see fewer loading screens and some sort of map or indication a track is nearing the end. Fewer loading screens. Not sure how that looked, to be honest. The less BS in late game. Yeah, in Burnout 3, late game, you would drive the, I think, formula car. But it was so prone to crashing. Like, if you even hit the wall slightly, it would just fully combust. Yeah, late game in Revenge was a little bit, you know, forgiving, I guess. Some sort of map indication of try. Yeah, it's just tiny complaints, nothing too major. But the fact is, I released each minute with this game. Just as I did with Burnout 3, Revenge offers the visceral thrills and constant level of satisfaction that few games reach, practically eliminating my desire to ever put it down. Okay, that's pretty good, alright. I think that's the best way you can summarize this game, man. Similar to Burnout 3, but still a really good game with, you know, few buffs, few extra things, and a lot of polish to make it a good game to this day, actually, on emulators. What's the difference? Revenge looks amazing on the PS2 and not really much better on Xbox. Yeah, on Xbox it had constant motion blur as well, if I'm not wrong. We'd still get the Xbox version because it supports custom soundtracks, and if we're paying for live, we might as well use it. Both versions offer voice chat. Damien sticking with the same review, actually. Review score of a 9. Shu going for an 8.5. And G Ford for a 9. I'm not sure which one would I agree with. I would still say a 9. Somewhere up there. Even though it, it didn't have a whole lot of new things, it was still a Burnout game. It still gave you the thrill, the excitement these games just provide, compared to other racing games at the time. So going from Burnout, we are gonna be visiting Flat Out now. It's more than a crash test, dummies. Former TV star Kelsey Frossier Grammer once rolled his Dodge Viper, one of the lowest and widest cars on the road. For car neophytes, know that this feat takes as much talent as it does stupidity. Why do they have to have such fancy words, man? Like, am I the only one struggling to understand some of these words? Did they really have to go for stuff like that? Speak normal English, exactly. Like, we are just normal idiots. Give us normal words, not these fancy-ass English words, man. Why mention this? To confuse the living shit out of me. Well, I was reminded of Frozier's supercar flipping antics while playing Flat Out. Since when you graduate to the middle and later circuits of this Destruction Derby style racer, you'll spend a lot of time getting spun around and even flipped over by your opponents. Don't think Flat Out is a bad game, though it's not, but due to these other annoying quirks, it's more a solid Burnout knockoff than the new Crash game. A Burnout knockoff? Seriously, a Burnout knockoff? The sense of speed is already different from Burnout and Flat Out, man. And this is a Crash Derby game. How is that a Burnout knockoff? I don't get that at all, man. Plus, this game had different game modes as well. Like, as you can see here, shooting yourself onto a dartboard. There was, I believe, one with like normal cards. I think football as well. Reviewing 101. Just say it's a knockoff of X popular thing. Flat is not a Burnout knockoff. This review is a whole knockoff itself. Exactly, man. That's the dumbest thing I've seen today, man. Like, just putting both games side by side, you can already see how different they are, man. Beginning with one of several beat-up 70s era cars, you'll try to win cash in off-road races and upgrade your ride. Flat-Out's two primary hooks are its physics system and hilarious minigames. That I do agree with. The minigames are actually quite fun. Havoc physics are put to excellent use here with cars that handle realistically and react appropriately upon impact, and you'll regularly collide with the logs, barrels, and other objects scattered across the track. The minigames put the middleware to humorous use too. For example, the bowling event challenges you to eject your driver from your speeding car, sending him through the windshield and down a huge lane and toward a set of giant pins. You say that and you call it a Burnout knockoff. Where do you have a bowling minigame and a Burnout game? Grab some friends, pass the controller around, and have a good laugh with it. Unfortunately, problems Flat Out. God damn it, man. Problems Flat Out limit this game's incredible potential. First, the physics are actually too good. Besides getting frequently spun out, you'll also regularly become stuck on the junk strewn about the course. And those marvelous minigames, well, you have to get through the frustrating real races to unlock them all. Frustrating real races. Man, this guy is just full of shit. This guy is legit full of shit. What frustrating real races were there even, man? I can't remember any single frustrating events, man. Regular events are fun in the game. What type of frustration did he have? Maybe one event, okay? What's it called? You know those events where like two lanes are like on similar paths and you might crash into an opponent during that type of event? Maybe you were talking about that? That he was having major skill issues. Ryan? Yeah. I don't know, man. That's just... Didn't expect to find a bad review this quickly. Still, mixing the party-friendly minigames with Xbox Live and offline multiplayer may be enough to warrant a purchase, provided you're able to temper your single-player expectations. Okay, verdict. Graphics perfectly serviceable, decent lighting, and full damage modeled cars help spice it up. Immersion, it's all about the minigames. Play them, love them. Soundtrack is a disaster of EA Track's proportions. At least you can switch it off. The soundtrack is a disaster, okay? Let's see if that's actually true. And I would have to listen to the entire soundtrack to really determine if it's good or bad, but I don't know. I think it's a disaster. I think that's just too harsh. If any of you fully listen to it, you can let me know your opinions, but honestly, I don't know. Saying it's a full disaster, I don't know. It's just overkill mode. The regular racing is ho-hum and mired by a few kinks, but the twisted minigames rock and could be their own entire game. Is this supposed to mean bad? I don't know. Like, what does ho-hum mean? I'm seriously struggling to understand some of the words. It means mid. Regular racing is mid and mired by a few kinks. I mean, it was the first game in the series. It tried to be something different from from the other racing games at the time. At least they, you know, fully improved it in the second game. Okay, good, bad, perplexing. Awesome Ragdoll Olympics minigames are a laugh riot. Excellent multiplayer support. Physics does as much harm as good. Not enough of the crazy minigame action for our tastes. How much do you want, man? What sick bastards, we mean that in the best way, thought this up? I kind of want to question the guy that reviewed this. What sick bastard, and I mean in the best way possible, thought of this entire review, man? First of all, calling it a Burnout knockoff already just made me dislike this thing, man. What else was it? The flat out pun later. This thing right here. What else? The guy had skill issues during this review, it seems, calling it frustrating real races. He gave it a 7.2 out of 10. 7.2. I think it could be a little bit higher. Maybe a 7.5. It was like the first game in the series. With that criticisms, I expected it to be rated 3 out of 10. For flat, he would give a 7. Yeah, 7 is not a bad rating as well, to be honest. I guess for me, 7 to 7.5, somewhere around there. Yeah, it's a good game, but this guy, not the best reviews out there, man. Wishlist. If there's a flat out 2, we'd like to see blood, gore, and bones that break on the ejected drivers, plus more sick minigames, of course. What the fuck? What is that, man? Blood, gore, and bones that literally fly off a person's body as they get ejected. Is this some type of zombie game, man, or what? He wants Carmageddon. It's the official Xbox magazine, by the way. Official Xbox. That was the first mech review, I would say. But speaking of Flat Out 1, we gotta check out Flat Out 2, and let's see if this game's at least better than Flat Out 1 in terms of rating. But we'll see that eventually. Strap in for safety, unbuckle for fun. It doesn't take too long to wrap your head around the idea that in Flat Out 2, wrecking is not a bad thing. Wrecking is good. Wrecking works. Wrecking earns you fame and fortune. I mean, that's how you get money overall. You wreck a lot of people, you get a lot of money, you upgrade your cars, do more wrecking, get more money, and get different cars. Sorry. The follow-up to the moderately successful Flat Out doesn't rock the boat. What? Doesn't rock the boat. How does it not? Like, there's been so many improvements from the first game into the second. A lot more life put into it, man. To say something like that? I'm just thinking these writers, reviewers, just do not like the concept of Flat Out at all. They would prefer something different, some other racing game at the time. The gameplay and mayhem are functionally identical. Right down to your ragdoll driver with a penchant for hurtling through the windshield when he crashes. Identical. I wouldn't say it's identical, man. Like, the concept's still similar, you know? Calling it identical. Like, it already looks a lot better, man. Already looks a lot better as it is. Even that explosion wouldn't be that, like, enormous in the first game. It already is a different game on its own. Night and day difference, no? Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't think you had really this mode in the first game. Could be wrong. Yeah, it aged well. People still play Flat Out games to this day. I don't get how they call it identical, man. In career mode, you'll half race, half smash your way through 6 major environments and dozens of track layouts against 7 other contenders, with up to 4 human players in split screen mode. The usual unlockables await: earn cash to upgrade your ride, buy new cars, and open new tracks and minigames. But those minigames were the surprise hit of the original Flat Out, and the developer Bugbear learned a lesson from the complaining masses who didn't want to have to earn the right to the good stuff. A lesson from the complaining masses who didn't want to earn their right to the good stuff. Now you don't need to unlock anything to play the minigames, or race on any track for that matter. Yeah, it's a long way of saying bugbear listen to players. I mean, I kind of like that. Like, everything is just unlocked from the get-go there. At least with the mini-games. You don't have to unlock it, like, way later in the game or whatever. That's kind of a nice feature, I would say. Ignore the career mode entirely if you want. You can play everything from the main menu. That includes a full dozen mini-games where you eject your driver into a surreal environment. Highlights include a virtual poker game. You try to launch the ragdoll at the card you want, a ski jump, and a perverse version of baseball that gives your driver the double indignity of being shot through a car window and smacked with enormous bats. It's enough to make you forget that there's a driving game that comes with all this. And as arcade racers go, Flat Out 2 is about par. It's about par. Oh, man. Christopher, what type of copium were you using, man? The track design is hit and miss, usually featuring aggravating blind curves that can quickly turn a comfy lead into a last place finish. Playing straight is next to impossible. The urge to smash everything in sight for which you earn bonus cash is just too strong. And that's kind of the point, man. Smash other opponents, destroy them, get a lot of score. Just have fun. Sadly, you have to do well in a series of races to advance. Blow a single race out of 3 or more, and you'll have to do them all over if you want to unlock the next section. I mean, the AI wouldn't be that tough in this game, if I remember correctly. They were still pretty decent, but nothing like too difficult. I'm just convinced they had skill issues at this one. Cut to the front of the line. All those hours playing Grand Theft Auto should come in handy in Flat Out. The GTA procedure for making an opponent spin out works perfectly here. Isn't it procedure steal cars? That is true. Now, as for the review, it's a 7. That is just complete garbage. Apparently, this rating is worse than Flat Out 1. How? I have no idea. First of all, adding a shit ton of new stuff, you know, improving the graphics, the mini games, physics. Yet you rated lower than the first game. Music, yeah, I don't know how the music was, but I imagine it had a lot of rock in it as well. This is the best game I've ever played. 6 out of 10. Average IGN reviewer. Yeah, this should be at least an 8. To go lower than the first game is just batshit insane. So let's see. Ragdoll minigames are blast. Updated music gives you both recent hits and Dr. Feelgoods. Racing feels old hat. You probably won't bother finishing career mode. How, man? I don't know. How does it feel old? Like, literally, it's just exciting, man. Especially when you can just do all kinds of stuff with your opponents, like crash them out, fully destroy their cars. What type of boomer played this game, man? See, kids, physics can be fun. They weren't fun for you, it seems. Like, you had, what, dirt, road, and I think racing specs or tiers, I forgot. And you would just go through them and, like, complete all the events. But you can mix it up. You know, if you're tired of the races, do the special mini games, have fun there, come back to the races. What rating would you give for Flat Out 2? For me, definitely an 8 to 8.5, somewhere in that range. To say it's a 7, man, is just... Let's try something different, see how the Juice series did back in the day. So it's from the same magazine as the first two, with our Gigachat Damien in here as well, man. OneUp.com John. And G4 is back. Let's go. Okay, backseat driving grandma. Why is Juice telling us to slow down? Backseat driving grandma. It already feels better than the previous thing. Okay, let's see what Damien had to say. If this all looks strangely familiar, kind of like page 136 of EGM 184, that's because we've already reviewed this Street Racer. But before Juiced actually made it to the store shelves, then publisher Acclaim bit the dust. THQ stepped in, put Juiced back in the garage for some needed gameplay tweaks, and here we are for real this time. I'm actually kind of curious how the, I guess, first version was. So someone else tried to make this game, but the studio closed down, then someone else stepped in. Aside from the usual tune race repeat dynamic, Juiced has a few interesting features. You can bet on races and race for pink slips. A few unwise wagers early on can have serious consequences to your cash flow. You'll also add AI drivers to your crew as you progress, whose skill increase with track time while you play the pit boss or race alongside in a team battle. Yeah, it was a new IP as well, new thing, and it tried to add some new stuff into it. Yeah, you also had AI drivers. You can make your crew like up to 4 members, I believe. And also wagers and pink slips were a nice addition to the game. As in Gran Turismo 4's B-Spec mode, you'll adjust your AI racer's driving style with the D-pad. While not tons of fun, it's an easy and optional way to earn money. Yeah, there was like a few game modes, sorry, a few options there, but I can't remember doing a whole lot. Actually, I think there was like, you could tell him to push and he would literally use his entire nitrous bottle. And like trying to tell him to slow down or something. Unfortunately, even when you're behind the wheel yourself, Juice just isn't the same race class as its top rivals Need for Speed and the Midnight Club. The cityscapes and cars have a cartoony look, and the handling is stuck somewhere in the not as fun as it could be zone between a sim racer and an outrageous arcade game like Burnout 3. Yeah, I didn't really like the handling in Juice. To be honest, I think it was mostly fun with 4-wheel drive cars, all-wheel drive cars. Rear-wheel drive cars always spun out easily in this game. And the final classes were literally just a Viper and a Corvette, which were rear-wheel drive. It falls short to Most Wanted, Burnout 3, and Revenge. Yeah, the handling just wasn't the best. Best in class, yeah. And Prezza was really grippy. Really grippy. It's just those top-tier cars you would just have. They would just spin out so easily. And I don't know, I just didn't really enjoy even driving those cars. I preferred the lower-end cars, mainly because they were stable. As expected, the Xbox version looks a bit better, but the PS2 game does support online voice chat if you got a headset. Online in Juice. Kinda curious how that was, to be honest. And though you can race your career mode cars online and lose them in ill-advised pink slip races... Wait, you could actually do that? Lose your cars in online pink slips? You don't even have this in modern video games. Like, you don't even have this in Unbound. And I think they teased that online pink slip races would be a thing? Or something like that. Bill, or what his name, literally steals your cars for fun. That is true, but you can't bet with other players, which is a shame. Juice's attempt to bring something new to street racing earns my respect, but not my love. I agree with his opinions, okay? It's not bad. The game isn't the best thing out there, but it certainly tried. It tried to be unique at the time. Mainly, the complaint was just handling, and at some point, it does kind of feel, I guess, repetitive. Just trying to get the highest respect with the bosses, with the other rivals in the game. It could be a little bit repetitive, so... But it was still okay-ish. Not completely garbage, I would say. Back when I first reviewed Juice over 6 months ago, I had some good times. While it never delivered the same thrills as Midnight Club or Underground, it had a few clever ideas. But many months have passed and the game is only marginally better. Its controls are a little smoother among other tweaks. And the rest of the genre has moved on now that the big boys have their new updates. While still a respectable game that's enjoyable for a few laps, Juice lacks the impact it would have had last year. It had a good foundation, but it just lacked a huge-ass impact to really put it up there with the other games. OneUp.com John. The problem with all of these tuner culture games is that they take themselves so seriously. Even the menu screens have tribal tattoos here, and even new shaven-headed Supra driving thug you meet is more desperately earnest than the last. So his complaint was people having tattoos. Does he mean like their lines were serious but their facial expressions were meh? If it's like that, then yeah, I would agree. Like some would really yell, you know, or you know, curse, let's say, like that, but their facial reactions would just be the same. Like one guy, when he loses his pink slip, he just has the same meh face, but he's yelling.
Just take your money.
Like a lot of old racing games take themselves too serious, like you're talking to a cringy edgelord. Early 2000s was like the edgelord theme, I guess. You can especially tell with Most Wanted. Okay, that said, Juice is a competent entry into the genre. Most of the boxes on the list of necessary features for this kind of thing are checked, and it sits comfortably between Need for Speed Underground and Underground 2. I mean, it had unique things, but I think it's a little bit of a stretch saying it can sit comfortably between those games. Like, it had some things that Underground didn't, but Underground still felt better, you know, in a lot of ways. It could be rated closely, but I don't know if I would put them side by side. Lots of cars, lots of mods, and gambling, which adds a dynamic that's only really been done before in street racing syndicates. Driving feels on the arcade end of the scale. You can chuck up a 200 horsepower front drive car into a bend at 80 miles without any tedious understeer. Realistic? No, but it's fast and it's pretty fun. Just not anything particularly special. I guess that's what you could say overall about this game. It's okay, but nothing too special, I guess. It did have some nice things. Nice elements, you know, gambling, pink slips. Characters were a little bit over the top with the expressions. Respect, yo. Juice career mode is all about respect. After each event, your respect rating with other street racing crews will fluctuate depending on your performance. Some crews are impressed by circuit race wins, others don't bat an eye unless you race for pinks. They all get pissed if you bang up their cars though. Problem is, each crew leader says the same one or two things over and over. Carlos of the Legion crew can only say, you're a demon with the pinks. So many times before it gets a little ridiculous.
You're a demon with a pinks.
Now, as for the ratings, what would you rate this game? A 6.5. I think somewhere, yeah, a 6 or a 7. 6 or a 7. Never play it out of 10. I love those reviews. And the review scores are 7, 6.5, 7. I think that's respectable. Good. Betting on races, making the AI drive for you. Bad. Car handling not as polished or fun as it should be. Do agree with that. Not to be confused with Juice, the 1992 Tupac film. I actually didn't know there was a film like that. But think about this for a second, okay? Like, this game is a 7, and Flat Out 2 was also a 7. According to the official Xbox magazine. Think about that one. Okay, let's go to the next game. So, next game on the list is Juice 2. The folks at the THQ seem to think that import tuner car scene can still spawn a decent video game or two, and they are mostly right. Juice 2 hint carries on where its 2005 original Xbox predecessor left off, and presents you with an enjoyable, solid, if not terribly sophisticated 360 racing experience. 90 licensed cars and thousands of aftermarket parts deliver plenty of vehicular and customization options. But the nurtured car physics, our rear-wheel drive Acura NSX doesn't drive appreciably differently than, say, a front-wheel drive Honda CRX. Yeah, I do kind of agree with that. Like, any car pretty much felt the same in terms of handling. Like, whether it be front-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive, whatever drivetrain it was, everything just drove the same, kind of, in Juice. And that I can't disagree with. Like, handling, they didn't really care too much. I guess they saw people complaining about the first game. They were like, nah, we're just gonna make it, you know, really easy so nobody complains. Yeah, engine sounds as well were way off. And sterile urban race settings lobotomize the experience somewhat. Thankfully, Juice 2 is full to overflowing with inflectuous gameplay options to try out, including merciless drift events, pink slips, in-game wagering, driver DNA tracking. The DNA actually did not matter at all. The DNA system did nothing. It was just there. Like, you could just see a fancy color on something, but it didn't, like, change anything, really. Like, whether it was hot, whether it was cool or neutral, it was just there. It didn't, like, change anything, really. And a seamless online career mode. I kind of wish to see that, how it was. Yeah, DNA is just there for visuals, nothing too important. With all that going on, the characterless driving environments aren't such a distraction. While Juice 2 isn't the smoothest driving Xbox 360 racer on the market, it's definitely one of the more filling. Andy Mahood. Pretty short review. Now, the rating is a worse rating than the first game. If you discount Damien and the 1UP guy, it's a 6.5 in terms of rating. The official Xbox magazine. I think the official site had such bad review scores so far. Impressive gameplay depth variety, loads of cars, parts, characterless driving model, and sterile tracks. Lacks wow power in a been there, done that genre. Shouldn't busted up cars lose some speed. Yeah, the tracks are alright. They're kind of, you know, over the top. Like driving on an ice track, for example. But it looked nice, I guess. Sterile. Does that mean overall terrible? I don't know. Some tracks were alright. Some did look a little bit blandish. Does it deserve to be worse than the first game, or, well, same if we go with the other rating? Maybe a 7, 6.5, 7, I don't know. It was definitely goofy with the physics. The characters were kind of lifeless in some way, apart from like when you wager against them. So, it is kind of forgettable. Like, it didn't have that wow power. I do agree with that. It's just, I think you had Underground 1 and 2 already out at that point. So didn't this game coming out later, not having anything new to show for, apart from, I guess, a few things, just didn't really help its case. So I guess that's Juice 2 as well. So let's move to another series. Okay, so next game on the list. How about we go for a little bit of a tropical vibe? Next game on the list, Test Drive Unlimited Driving in Paradise. Test Drive is back, baby. French developer Eden Games injects fresh life into Atari's stale driving game franchise with Test Drive Unlimited. An ambitious new chapter that features an imposing stable of wet dream driving machines and 1,000 miles of authentic Hawaiian roads on which to open them up. The game takes place on Oahu, not Honolulu, not Waikiki, but the entire island of Oahu. Every damn road. Yeah, it was actually for its time. Like, I don't think any game really tried to go for a 1x1 scale of a real place. TDU delivers one of the most extraordinary backdrops in the history of driving games at the time. The 90 gorgeous licensed vehicles from Audi TTs to Enzo Ferraris, to sweeten the experience even further with their detailed cockpit artwork and sim-like driving physics. A disappointing lack of mass tends to launch them skyward a little too easily over undulating terrain. However, which significantly reduces the fun factor in some of the island's twistier roadways. Yeah, the physics were a little bit out there. Like if you had a little bit of airtime, the game would suck you down back to the ground. launch them skyward though. Did pull in the normal mode. Yeah, physics were a little bit out there, but not completely bad. Your customizable on-screen avatar can shop for luxury homes, clothing, performance parts, and cars between driving stints. And with over 350 online and offline racing challenges to choose from, you'll never run out of live or simulated opponents. Yeah, at that time, there was no real game that had this type of experience. Like, you actually going out there buying luxurious homes, filling them up with expensive cars. You really didn't have that type of a thing back then. It was just like a breath of fresh air in the racing space at the time, both offline and online. I remember a lot of people commented on my TD1 videos saying online was pretty good when it actually worked, you know, before shutting down the servers. The Teflon-style undamageable cars and rubber band AI will undoubtedly vex some, but they're easily ignored alongside TDU's tingling sense of speed and seamless Xbox Live integration. Don't let its modest $40 price fool you into thinking this is bargain bin junk. Test Drive Unlimited is an A-list driving game on every measurable level. I do agree with that, man. $40 though. $40 to get a game like this? I think that was a pretty good deal, actually, when it actually released. Getting such an experience for that amount of money, I would say that's a pretty good deal. Oh yeah, it also had pretty well detailed interiors for a 2006 game, man. Our lad Andy gave it a 8.5, and I would agree with that as well. It's a respectable opinion. Like, it tried something out there that no other racing game did at the time, making such a huge-ass map, even though in some cases was a little bit, you know, lifeless, I guess. You didn't see anyone attempt something of that scale. I don't think even the crew Motorfest is planning on doing something like that. Plus, the entire island of Oahu is your driving playground. 90 licensed sports cars, motorcycles, and exotic GT machines. Motorcycles, the only annoying part about it is you had to discover every shop before you could buy a motorcycle. Like, why restrict that? Just have it open instantly, man. I don't know why they chose to do it like that. Dodgy physics on hilly terrain. I do kind of agree with that. It can be a little bit finicky at times with physics. Cops is missing. Cops were here, but they were mainly a tedious thing. Like, they just served the purpose of just annoying you. Like, you get 3 stars, pull over, take the fine, and then move on. The best PlayStation game ever. The world's best-selling PlayStation magazine. This racing game where the only thing missing is the smell of burning brake discs is finally here. Get ready for the drive of your life with Gran Turismo. One thing you could definitely say about Gran Turismo 1 at least is it definitely influenced the games we have nowadays. Like if there was no Gran Turismo 1, we wouldn't have had Forza Motorsport and countless other video games, I believe. So it definitely influenced the racing space a lot. Probably the whole sim racing genre would be affected. Yeah, definitely, man. What makes GT different from all the other races on the market? For stars, the graphics. You see it moving and fall in love. Yeah, it did look pretty good for a PS1 game. And the amount of different stuff you could do in there, like the license test, the different cups and championships, getting all those prize cards. It was just, could you say it was way ahead of its time? The attention to detail is frighteningly good, with virtually no pop-ups, screen glitches, or clipping errors, thereby ensuring the track cars and scenery are all totally solid and believable. There are 10 companies which have agreed to license their model types to Sony for Gran Turismo, representing car makers from Japan, America, England. Yeah, quite a bit of a list, and they were pretty well detailed. Likewise, the sound of the engines is so entirely right, it's hard not to believe you're sat in the cockpit of one of the 300 or so cars that are built into the game. 300 for that thing, for the PS1 render. I still remember how good an RX-7 sounded in that game. Like, it legit sounded like the real thing. And nowadays, you'll see, I guess, with Forza games, you know, they still struggle to nail the engine sound. Even though that series has been going about the same as the Gran Turismo. Yeah, I had quite a bit of tracks as well. About 11. Like High Speed Ring, Autumn Ring, Deep Forest, Special Stage, Grand Valley. And they all were well detailed. Spending hours getting the B license. Yeah, licenses were really, really tough at the start of the series. Like trying to just get a bronze was tricky enough. Imagine trying to get golds on every single thing, man. After spending a few hours getting your B license, you get a bit tired of testing your abilities against yourself. At least now you got access to some of the money earning races. Like Gran Turismo would help you actually learn, you know, driving techniques, actually make you better overall. And as I expected, it's a 10 months. Verdict: graphics utterly realistic, almost as good as the real thing. Gameplay, cars handle perfectly, and there's bags of depth. Lifespan about 40 hours play, you've barely scratched it. Gran Turismo takes every other PlayStation racer and sends them squealing off to the pits. It's a perfect racing game as you've ever seen. Yeah, there isn't anything wrong. Like, it's just good in every single department, I would say. Even the soundtrack is good in this game. Like, I just can't think of any critique, really. Hard as balls for a first time playing? Yeah, I played it a few years ago for the first time, and really, still, it influenced so many different racing games at the time, which was fantastic on its own, man. We can move on to its competitor, Forza Motorsports. I was able to find Forza Motorsport 4, not the first one. But so the fourth game was pretty good as well, so I put it on the list here. Pure autoerotica. From the moment you pop in the Forza Motorsport 4 disc, it's clear that this game is made for anyone who's ever had a dream car, regardless of whether they've been lucky enough to own or even drive it. Top Gear's Jeremy Clarkson narrates a tone-setting opening cinematic that establishes the game as a digital haven for the world's most exotic and historically unique whips. Over 500 of them, actually not including the oncoming rush of DLC cars. It had quite a bit of them. I think you need to have 2 discs to get all the cars as well. A bit unreal. We were able to upgrade the anemic 130 horsepower DeLorean to over 300 horsepower. Who would even upgrade a DeLorean in real life, man? Xbox 360 wireless speed wheel or a Fanatec CSR wheel pedals and shifter. Now they have specific verdicts for the wheels. A 7 for the wireless speed wheel and an 8 for the Fanatec. You have it and it's dog shit. Yeah, this game actually had damage. I think damage models, damage physics. If you hit your car too much on the walls or against other people, your car would handle much worse or lose a lot of speeds. Auto Vista was pretty good. You had the Top Gear narrators in this game as well. And a lot of beautiful tracks. Like, I think Sebring was in here. Custom fictional tracks. We spend most races brute force smashing through rivals to pass them, and later in the game, they begin getting fed up with our tactics and returning the favor. So basically, they were Forza driving. Realistically, the worst thing we can say about 4 is that it assumes you share every bit of its undying passion for automobiles. Nowhere does it teach you about the driving lines, drafting techniques, or other principles and nuances of racing. For example, we learned the basics of drifting only through trial and error, although we still can't figure it out enough to earn the achievement for doing a perfect one. For a hardcore driving simulation, this vagueness is somewhat puzzling. I guess they just expected you, you've already learned how to drive from other video games at the time. Maybe from Gran Turismo or something else. How dare a racing game assume you're into cars? How dare you not have knowledge of every single car out there before playing our game? Put simply though, no other car game on Xbox or any other platform, we dare say, even approaches Forza 4's depth, versatility, beauty, and community support. It's so comprehensive that there's probably nowhere for the series to go from here, except for the inevitable Xbox 720. Xbox 720, man. Why did we never get a console like that? Why did we never get a thing like that? Until then, enjoy every minute of this ride. Ryan McCaffrey. Now, what rating would you say this game got? Rating-wise, it's a 9.5, which I think is well-deserved. Ridiculous number of cars and all gorgeously recreated. Oddless of options and online community features, including an auction house and car clubs. Not much in the way of tutorials though. I guess they wanted GT license school in this game to teach them how to drive. Why does the DeLorean look like it's painted? It's bare stainless steel. Who cares about the DeLorean, man? Ryan, come on. Find other nitpicks. But still, for the 360, man, the amount of tracks, the amount of cars it had, and the way it looked was fantastic, man. Like, you could also do a bit of toge racing. I do remember that. It had funny mini-game modes, like playing bowling on the Top Gear test track. I think there was some other stuff. Only thing I didn't like with the Forza Motorsport games, the manufacturer bonuses. Like, you drive a specific manufacturer's car. The more you drive it, you get a higher and higher discount to the point where it's literally 100% off. Which, I mean, if you want to upgrade a car to the max, fine. But I don't know, I never liked that type of appeal. Let's go back to a little bit in the arcade racing genre with Midnight Club 3, a tuner fan's dream. There's an obvious glut of street racing games on store shelves, and while Midnight Club 3 might initially seem like a shallow attempt to capitalize on the increasing popularity of the tuner market, it actually isn't. In fact, Midnight Club 3 does a decent job of straddling the line between over-the-top arcade street racing and simulation. I don't know if I could say Midnight Club 3 and simulation in the same sentence. Midnight Club 3 gives you high-speed races through the streets of 3 different cities that involves lots of collisions, huge jumps, and insane shortcuts, as well as traditional skill-based races. The game's vehicle selection is similarly well balanced. Each type of car has physics that are grounded in real life. SUVs are slower, hulking beasts that can take a serious beating, while sports cars are faster but can't absorb quite as much damage. Yeah, the fact that this game even had SUVs, man. I still don't know why many games added it back then. Like, Midnight Club had it, Underground 2 had it. What was so appealing about SUVs back then? At least the SUVs were a little bit fun to drive in Midnight Club 3, especially like the Gambada. At the same time, everything is balanced enough so that no single car will have a huge advantage during a race, unless you haven't been taking the time to upgrade your ride. And it's the upgrading that really takes the spotlight. The garage featured in Midnight Club 3 offers so many different customization and tuning options that it could have easily been its own car customization game. I mean, visually, I guess it had a bit of stuff to play around with. But the normal upgrades weren't too complex. Like, it was pretty simple. And it would unlock after certain, if you've progressed enough in the game, if I remember correctly. While you won't spend a ton of time in there initially for the simple reason that you just won't have the funds, you will once you have earned more money and unlocked additional items to customize your ride. Indeed, you might even find yourself spending dozens of minutes just looking for the right paint job or spoiler for your car. In terms of like body kits, spoilers, and all kinds of stuff like that, it did have a big selection in there. That's what I liked about him. You could just take your sweet time making the car look exactly as you wanted in there. There's just a very addictive element to this, and the game does a great job of making sure that your customization efforts don't go unnoticed. There's a strong emphasis on speed in Midnight Club 3. You have not only Nitro, but also Slipstream Turbo with which you drive behind an opponent's car until you fill up the turbo meter. Then you can blow right past them. Pretty much what Unbound took from this game with the second Nitro, you know, drive behind someone, get that Nitro build up, and just boom. These power-ups can completely change the outcome of a race, but some people may want to avoid using them altogether since they tend to make the game a little too surreal at times. We had Zone, Rage, Roar, I believe. 3 abilities. I mainly use Zone when I play these games. I never really tried the other ones because this didn't appeal to me. Single player mode offers good fun as well, but navigation can still be an issue during a race. Your attention is focused on several different things at once, and it can often be difficult to gauge exactly where you're supposed to go or what the best route is. It is tough at times, but it's kind of like the fun part of Midnight Club 3. Like all kinds of things happening, but you're still trying to figure out where you're supposed to go, especially with the unorganized checkpoint events. I don't know, for some it might be a little bit headache inducing, but that's why I actually enjoyed those moments. It would require a bit of trial and error, of course, but it just felt nice once you actually nail the route in your head and then successfully do it. As you get to know the layout of a city, it becomes less of a problem, but until you reach that point, it's a major source of frustration. Game journalist molding. Game journalists had a lot of skill issues. Midnight Club 3 has something to offer for every kind of racing fan. Sometimes it can feel a little too over the top, particularly when power-ups and special abilities for specific cars are unlocked, such as the Roar, Shockwave for muscle cars that pushes everyone out of the way. It always manages to pull you back down to reality, whether it's inside of the garage or when you're neck and neck in a race to the last checkpoint. Yeah, it can be a little bit over the top with the power-ups, I do agree with that, but they were also fun. Fun little addition to add it and separated from different games like Underground at the time. And yeah, I certainly had a lot of fun with it. It's still next to Midnight Club LA, it's like one of my favorites in the series. As for this guy, he gave it a 4 out of 5 circles. That is a lot of circles for this game, man. I agree with it, man. Not 4 out of 10, but 4 out of 5 circles. Fun races, excellent customization mode. Feels a little too over the top sometimes. Trial and error racing is frustrating. I call skill issues on that. So I guess an 8 out of 10 is what they're going for. Do you guys agree with that opinion? Do you think it's worth an 8 out of 10? Or should be higher or less? I think an 8 is pretty good for this game. Some things were a little bit over the top. Can be a little bit frustrating at times, but it's still overall a fun game to come back to at times. For Midnight Club, it can only be a certain game to follow it up, man. That game is Street Racing Syndicate with its interesting presentation. Race for cash and respect, or lay it all on the line in revolutionary online pink slip races. Man, a lot of games had this type of stuff back in the day, but nothing nowadays. No modern racing games have online pink slip races. Every night in cities like LA, Philly, and Miami, crews of import tuners push their nitrous-injected obsessions to the limit. Whether in underground or sanctioned races, on the track or through the wide-open city streets, high speed bring high risk and serious rush. Join the Street Racing Syndicate. Upgrade officially licensed vehicles with hundreds of actual aftermarket parts. So upgrade aftermarket parts, stickers, paints, and vinyls, and throw it in the dyno to measure your mods before you put it on the track to test your skills. Because in the end, glory is nice, money and models are better. But driving away with your opponent's ride is just plain sick. I like this comment. Whoever thought it'd be cool to win girlfriends has problems. Winning girlfriends and storing them in your warehouse. The American way. Like legit, who thought that was a good idea? I agree 100% with that one. Deeper than Need for Speed Underground. Almost the same game as Underground. So why not wait for Underground 2? Nah, man, that's a whole lot of copium right there. That is a whole lot of copium right there. What type of shit are you smoking? Calling it Deeper and almost the same game. Oh yes, in Underground 1, you get to lock women in your warehouse as well after specific points. I guess the only thing you could say is just no open world. Actually, I think the Street Racing Syndicate had open world. Not a big map, but a small map. Some games just can't get a break. Despite its eerie resemblance to Underground, Street Racing Syndicate actually predates EA's runaway hit by several months. Publishing snags kept SRS from coming out first, though, and the result is a racer that's still solid but lacks Underground's freshness. SRS does manage to do many things right. For example, the freely explorable cityscapes. See, you can explore in this game. Unlike in Underground, you can go around town at will in search of pickup races, sanctioned matches, cop chases, and hot female car groupies. There's a far deeper selection of custom parts, although it's bewilder the casual crowd, and the online play includes a mode in which you can actually race for other players' rides, which is way more gratifying than jumping from 10,000 from some number to number in the world rankings. It's not that the graphics are poor either, or that the driving, which is a bit more sim-oriented than most street racing games, is subpar. It's just that you have seen or will see nearly everything SRS has to offer in Underground, which makes it difficult to get very enthusiastic about such a similar title. I'd recommend it for Street Racer nuts, but for others, it serves mainly as a time killer before Underground 2's November launch. Oh yeah, this was actually after that, before Underground 2. Saying it's deeper though, bad, like, I don't know. I can't even remember any noteworthy moments from Street Racing Syndicate. Driving wasn't that bad, but I don't know, it didn't really have that wow factor, I guess. For me at least. Like, I just don't remember too much about it. Besides the hot models, I guess. That's like the only stand-worthy thing you have in this game. But I could be wrong. If Need for Speed Underground and Midnight Club 2 are the tuning genre's trademark pill, then SRS is the generic FDA-approved equivalent. The generic FDA-approved equivalent. It does what it's supposed to do. It looks decent, controls well, features a solid open city format, and has a variety of multiplayer and online options. Yet it still feels substandard. This may be because it does nothing to pull ahead of the year-old pack, nor does it match the visceral thrills offered by the aforementioned games. And while unlocking girls and videos of them bouncing around to the drooning soundtrack doesn't close that gap. I agree with this guy, man. Unlocking girls and videos of them bouncing around doesn't close that gap. Literally, that's like the main thing they had standing out with this game. Just the women they added. Even my man, official PS Mag John D stated, man, boob-related gimmicks aside, SRS is a competent and feature-packed game, but my fellow reviewers called it. SRS just lacks the certain something that made Underground so exciting. It's disappointing because SRS covers all the bases except for the two most important in this genre. There's no real sense of speed, and the handling lacks weight or feel. The result is more like driving an RC car around the game packed with unrealized opportunity. There are some great ideas, particularly in the online game, but with Underground 2 on the way and Burnout 3 already here, SRS doesn't quite have what it takes. You know what's the only interesting thing about this game? You can still buy it on Steam. That's the only interesting thing I could say about it. You could still go and buy this game on the Steam marketplace for a few euros. Now, as for the rating, Kevin was super horny. Okay, G, Ford, and John, okay, they were okay. Kevin, on the other hand, I would honestly give it a 6. Kevin, for fuck's sake, we talked about this. No horny on the job. NASCAR 2005 Chase for the Cup. It's also next to Street Racing Syndicate, so might as well add this one. So, I've never played any NASCAR games. I don't know much about them. Can't really say much about it, but I still would like to give it a read to see how it is. Good post-race confrontations, bad getting booed by the crowd, wish it had full field online races. Dude, a lot of these games have online features or words mentioning online. Deep down, NASCAR fans have to face the dirty shame-faced truth. Their sport is built on a series of never-ending left-hand turns. Newcomers like me have a tough time getting up to speed on what a dynamic sport this is. But EA Sports has retooled its NASCAR franchise in hopes of making it more accessible to your average car nut. And it definitely is. That's kind of like how I am, I guess. It's just, you just picture in your head, it's just, you know, cars turning left. But I imagine there's a lot more going into that. I think there was actually a pretty decent video recently explaining some differences with NASCAR games, how they are. Longtime fans will surely notice the eye-catching new street races, which steal a bit from EA's mega-popular Need for Speed series. These unsanctioned showdowns only add to the drama that fuels the best male soap opera this side of the WWE. What? Heroes are crowned, villains twist the ends of their mustaches, and grudges are held. How do you put NASCAR and WWE in the same sentence, man? Didn't know that could be a thing, but hey, here we are. NASCAR 2005's career mode unfurls around you, draws you in, and keeps you coming back. If it's just racing you on, well, 2005 has plenty of horsepower under the hood. Great car handling, savvy AI, and enormous amount of trackside detail kick this game into high gear. I honestly should check out one of these NASCAR games at some point just to see how they are for myself. I haven't done that yet. There's something oddly engrossing about the career mode in NASCAR, Kevin says. New race series are great additions, yes, but the real draw is undoubtedly the violence. Sure, you can become a hero by making clean passes and helping pensioners across the street, but in practice, it's far easier and more fun to run cars off the track, get in fights, and be the baddest overweight mustachioed Kentuckian you could possibly be. Okay, I need to see this, man. So I guess this is the fighting they were talking about.
I live in Slavic Birmingham. If you want to fucking brawl, come.
What is that, man? Straight up from WWE, but pushing each other like that. Last year's Grudges and Alliances features goes a step further with this year's hero and villains. What will it be, good or bad guy? I guess it's similar to WWE in that way, because I know you have like the heel, which is like the bad guy, and the face, which is like the good guy, I guess. Yeah, I can't really say much about it. I've only seen the fight about it, but if there are any NASCAR fans that watch this video, do let me know your opinions about this game and if you actually want to see it on the channel. So we have Need for Speed Most Wanted. Facing insurmountable odds and or a giant donut. It's all good under the hood. Few games feature more apt titles than Most Wanted, which takes the best elements from franchise classics Underground Hopster 2, then tunes them to perfection. As a tuner seeking revenge on a street racing saboteur and some cocky cops, you'll work your way up the blacklist, gaining equal parts cred and infamy as you burn up a well-designed non-linear world. Non-linear, I mean, you can do different events, but it's still the same linear path of going up the blacklist and getting to Razor. Like, you can't really say it's a non-linear world, I guess. If they mean, like, which challenges you can choose, in that regard, yeah, you can choose what you want. The law looks for repeat offenders, so you'll need to indulge in repaints and fresh body kits to make your rides look different to the fuzz. The great customizing couldn't say. True, but you always would be back to condition 1. It would take forever to rebuild it, so no real point in doing that. Like, I guess if you want to be extra safe with the cops. I know this game is, you know, not everyone's cup of tea. You know, some people love it so much, some people don't like it, but you can't deny that it has a big impact still in the racing genre. Personally, for me, this was my very first racing game on my computer. So that's why I personally like it. And just because it's fun overall. But I'm not one of those people that really wants another game like this, if that makes sense. Like demanding, hey, the next Need for Speed needs to be the same as Most Wanted or similar experience, blah, blah, blah. I'm always interested in all new experiences, man. Thanks to aggressive and smart AI, the cops prove increasingly hard to outwit. My man, have you seen the first 3 condition cops? How are they hard to outwit? Calling smart AI in Most Wanted. Okay, just judging off of that, this is the first time this guy has played a Need for Speed game. The pursuit soundtrack of tense orchestral music combined with cop chatter makes the action in the nicest way possible cinematic. One thing I can really say about the soundtrack, man, the cop music is really, really intense, and I like it, man. Really fits with the theme. Really fits with the theme, man. With dream cars from Lexus to Lamborghini, Xbox Live support, and exciting accessible gameplay, Most Wanted delivers everything Need for Speed fans want. And the rating, I'm pretty sure you guys kind of can predict. The 9. If you need tips on tuning, here's a special segment for dummies, including myself. A straight 9 out of 10. Great blend of the series' best bits, customizable cars, high-octane races, and cop chases. Stylized cutscenes and hip-hop menu music set the bad boy tone, lots of upgrades, and can the 360 top this? Is this on like the OG Xbox or something? I guess a 9 out of 10 would be a decent rating for this game. Like, it did incorporate the best elements, that is true. And it is a fun game to still play. It's just mainly the fan base that just puts this game on a pedestal that makes most people just dislike even hearing about it nowadays. At least that's how I feel about it. Yeah, I think overall it's just because of how fans put it on a pedestal, it's just most people do not want to hear about this game nor see new instances of this. Like, they'd rather just have something entirely new instead of another repeat Most Wanted. Yeah, I think like an 8.5 out of 10. Like, it's still a good game. I feel like I'm gonna have a hate mob in my comments just for saying a lower rating. That's how I kind of feel about it. It can fall a little bit into a repetitive cycle later in the game. Essentially, you know, doing the same stuff but with faster cars, you know. Win a certain amount of races, do these certain things in cup chases, then unlock the blacklist member, do the same for the next guy. This was from the official Xbox magazine. I think that's good enough. I hope you lads enjoyed this stream. I actually had fun reading these types of things. Thank you for being here. Have a good night as well overall. I'll see you lads next time. Peace.